He wanted revenge, but the billionaire ended up falling for his enemy's daughter. Before we start today's story, comment below where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you haven't already. You won't want to miss. The city skyline shone bright at night. Tall buildings of glass sparkled like stars. From the window of his shiny black car, a man named Daniel Reed watched the city come closer. His face looked calm, but his eyes were cold and serious. 10 years had passed since he had left this city. He had gone away when his family lost everything because of another man. Daniel remembered how poor and sad they had become. His father's business had failed, and everyone had turned their backs on them. He had been just a young boy then, hurt, angry, and full of shame. But now, Daniel was back. He was rich, powerful, and no longer weak. The car stopped in front of the Metropolitan Art Museum, where bright lights and laughter filled the night. It was the Sterling Foundation Gala, the biggest and fanciest party in the city. And the man who owned it, the one who had destroyed Daniel's family, was there. His name was Cassius Sterling. "We're here, Mr. Reed," said the driver. Daniel didn't move at first. He fixed his shiny black cufflinks on his fancy tuxedo. He was not the poor boy Daniel Reed anymore. He had changed his name to Daniel Reed. Now he was a famous businessman with lots of money. But deep inside, he carried one strong wish: revenge. He wanted to destroy Cassius Sterling's world piece by piece. And he knew where to begin, with the person Cassius loved the most, his daughter. Daniel stepped out of the car. He could hear music, laughter, and the sound of glasses clinking together. The air smelled like perfume and money. He walked through the crowd slowly, his eyes watching everyone, the same rich people who had ignored his father long ago. Then he saw her. Isabel Sterling. She was standing near a tall marble sculpture. Her dress was deep pink and shimmered softly under the lights. Her brown skin glowed, and her chestnut hair fell gently on her shoulders. She looked happy, alive, and full of kindness. She was laughing while talking to an old man. For a small moment, Daniel felt something strange in his chest, something like guilt, but he pushed it away. She was a Sterling, and that meant she was part of the reason his family had suffered. He smiled, a charming smile he had practiced many times. It was part of his plan. He walked up to her and looked at the sculpture. "It's beautiful," he said quietly, "though I think the artist's earlier work was better." Isabel turned toward him. Her eyes were warm and curious. "You think so?" she asked. "I've always felt this one shows real emotion." Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, there's emotion, but it feels like the artist was trying to impress others. His earlier work, when he had nothing to lose, that was real passion." Isabel smiled. "You sound like you really know his art." "I make it a point to know what moves people," he said with a small grin. "Daniel Reed." She shook his hand, smiling kindly. "Isabel Sterling, you're the first person all night who's talked about art instead of champagne." "The champagne is fine," he said smoothly, "but the company is much better." Isabel laughed softly. Then Daniel added, "I've heard about your project, the Orion Gallery." Isabel's eyes brightened with joy. "You've heard of it? It was my mother's gallery. I'm trying to bring it back, but it's hard. Money is tight." Daniel looked thoughtful. "Your mother had great taste in art. It's a shame the gallery has been forgotten." Isabel looked down sadly. "It's her legacy. I can't let it fade away." "Maybe you don't have to," Daniel said gently, pulling out a sleek black card. His name was written on it in silver. "I invest in dreams. I'd love to see your gallery." Isabel took the card. Their fingers touched, and something warm passed between them. She smiled softly. "I'd like that. Thank you, Mr. Reed." "Please," he said, smiling, "call me Daniel." Then he walked away, disappearing into the crowd. From across the room, Daniel watched her. She was still holding his card with a hopeful look on her face. Her father, Cassius Sterling, walked up beside her, proud and powerful. Their eyes met across the room. Daniel and Cassius, the man who had ruined his family and the man who had returned for revenge. He said smoothly, "But the company is much better." Isabel laughed softly. Then Daniel added, I've heard about your project, the Orion Gallery. Isabel's eyes brightened with joy. You've heard of it? You've heard of it? It was my mother's gallery. I'm trying to bring it back, but it's hard. Money is tight. Daniel felt a chill of satisfaction. The first move in his plan had been made. But as he left the gala that night, Isabel's warm smile stayed in his mind. She wasn't spoiled or mean. She was kind and full of life. He told himself it didn't matter. His plan was clear. Make her trust him, make her love him, and then destroy her father's world through her heartbreak. But as the car drove through the shining city lights, a tiny feeling of doubt crept into Daniel's heart. The next week, Daniel visited the Orion Gallery with Isabel. The place looked old and dusty. Sunlight came through the big windows, showing empty walls and wooden floors that had seen better days. It still smelled faintly like paint and jasmine, her mother's favorite scent. It needs a lot of work, Isabel said, crossing her arms. She felt nervous. Daniel looked around slowly. He wore a dark sweater and looked serious, like a man studying something important. The bones are strong, he said finally. High ceilings, good light. This place isn't just a gallery, it's a canvas. Isabel smiled softly. That's what my mother used to say. She believed the space should have a soul. Daniel turned to her, his blue eyes calm and deep. She was right. This place has a soul. That word surprised Isabel. She thought Daniel was a man who only cared about money, not about souls. A soul doesn't pay the rent, she joked. No, Daniel said, smiling a little, but vision does. I invest in vision. He looked at her kindly. Here's my offer. I'll pay to fix the gallery, add new lights, security, and help promote it. You'll be in charge of the art and artists. We'll be partners, 51 and 49%. You'll have control over the creative side. Isabel's eyes widened. It was everything she had dreamed of, but it was also scary to trust someone new. Why? She asked quietly. Why this gallery? Daniel hesitated. His calm mask almost broke. Because I hate wasted dreams, he said softly. And I can't stand to see a legacy die because of something like money. Let me help you save it. Isabel thought of her mother and the happy memories here. Her eyes filled with tears. Finally, she whispered, Okay, let's do it. Daniel smiled warmly. Excellent. The next few weeks flew by in a blur. Builders came, walls were painted, lights fixed, and plans made. Daniel worked tirelessly. He always seemed to know what to do. Isabel watched him with growing admiration. And as they worked side by side, something new began to grow between them. Their hands brushed when they reached for the same marble sample. They laughed over coffee breaks. Sometimes, when Daniel looked at her, Isabel's heart beat faster. You're not what I expected, Isabel said one evening as the sunset turned the gallery golden. I thought you were just another businessman. All numbers, no heart. But now I'm not so sure. Daniel smiled, really smiled this time, and it made him look softer, almost kind. For a moment, the man seeking revenge disappeared. In that warm light, Daniel wasn't a cold businessman. He was just a man looking at a woman who made him feel something real. He was supposed to be playing a game, making her trust him, fall for him, and then break her heart. But each time she laughed or smiled, the lines between his plan and his feelings began to blur. Daniel had always dreamed of getting revenge. For 10 long years, anger had lived in his heart. He wanted to hurt the man who had destroyed his father. That man was Cassius Sterling. But to do that, Daniel had a plan. He would get close to Cassius's daughter, Isabel Sterling, and make her trust him. Then, when the time was right, he would ruin everything her father loved, the Orion Art Gallery. At first, everything went as planned. Isabel didn't know who Daniel really was. She only saw him as a kind and helpful businessman who wanted to help fix her late mother's old art gallery. But something strange began to happen. Every time Daniel looked at Isabel, at her bright smile and the spark in her eyes, something inside him softened. He had expected to feel victory when Isabel trusted him. Instead, he felt something completely different. The wish to pull her close and kiss her came suddenly. It wasn't about revenge anymore. He took a small step back, trying to calm himself. "You did it, Isabel," he said softly. His voice sounded rougher than he meant. "It was your passion that convinced her." Isabel looked at him with confusion, and his chest hurt. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was supposed to make her fall, not the other way around. That night, Daniel stood in his big, empty apartment, staring at the shining city lights. He could still feel the warmth of her hand on his arm. The revenge that had once kept him strong now felt meaningless, like ashes in his mouth. He told himself it was just part of the plan, but deep down he knew he was starting to care for her. The next day, the Orion Gallery was full of noise. Workers were painting, hammering, and moving furniture. Isabel was in the center of it all, happy and full of energy. Daniel watched her, his heart tight with strange feelings. He had come here to destroy this place, yet it was becoming beautiful again because of her. While cleaning an old storage room, Isabel found a dusty drawing. "Look," she said, her eyes shining. "My mom made this. I forgot it was here." Daniel took the paper carefully. It was a drawing of a ballerina. The lines were soft but full of life. "She was really talented," he said quietly. Isabel smiled sadly. "My dad never thought so. To him, art was just something to sell. He wanted me to work with him in business. He calls this gallery my little hobby." Daniel froze. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, to turn her against her father. But the sadness in her voice stopped him. It wasn't just anger. It was pain. He sighed. "Some people only understand money," he said. "They can't see the value in things that don't have a price." Isabel looked up, her hazel eyes soft. "Thank you," she whispered, "for understanding, for seeing me." Her gratitude felt like a punch to his chest. He looked away quickly. The line between pretending and truly caring was gone now. That evening, the gallery was quiet. The sun was setting, painting the walls in gold and purple. Isabel and Daniel stood by the window, watching the city come alive with lights. "I don't think I could have done this without you," Isabel said gently. Daniel's heart pounded. "Yes, you could have," he replied. "You're the strongest person I've ever met." He meant it. She took a tiny step closer. "I don't feel strong right now," she whispered. And that was it. His heart gave up fighting. He lifted his hand and touched her cheek gently, wiping a little paint from her skin. She looked up at him, and for a moment time stopped. Then he leaned closer and kissed her softly. It wasn't a kiss of lies or games. It was warm and real. The kind of kiss that happens when two people's hearts speak louder than words. Isabel's hands rested on his chest, and he held her close. The world outside disappeared. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. Daniel's thoughts spun wildly. This was supposed to be part of his plan, make her fall for him. But now he was the one falling. He saw trust in her eyes, hope, and maybe even love. The revenge he had planned for years now felt like poison. Later, in his quiet apartment, they sat together watching the sunrise. The world was peaceful, but Isabel's voice broke the silence. "My father found out about us," she said softly. "He's cutting me off." Daniel froze. "He said I'm making a mistake by trusting you," Isabel continued. "That if I keep working with you, I'm on my own. But I don't care." Daniel's chest tightened. This was exactly what he wanted. Cassius pushing his daughter away. It was working. But looking at Isabel's face, he didn't feel victory. He felt guilt. She smiled faintly. "Let him. This gallery is mine now. It's the first thing that feels truly right." Her faith in him was a heavy weight on his heart. "Isabel," he began, but he couldn't finish. He wanted to tell her the truth, that he was the son of the man her father had destroyed. But the words stuck in his throat. She misunderstood his silence. "I know it's all happening fast," she said softly, "but when I'm with you, I feel like I can finally breathe. You see me, not as Cassius Sterling's daughter, but as me." Daniel closed his eyes. Every word she spoke made the guilt stronger. He had planned to trick her, but she had given him trust, care, and something he hadn't felt in years: love. That night, he realized something he could never take back. His heart had chosen her, and his revenge, the one thing that had driven him for so long, no longer mattered. The man Daniel Reed used to be was full of anger. He was the son of a man who had lost everything, and he wanted revenge. That angry voice inside him kept telling him to stay strong and not to feel sorry for anyone. But now, lying in bed next to Isabel Sterling, Daniel felt something new. He was changing. He was becoming someone different, someone kind, someone who could be trusted and loved. He turned to look at Isabel. In the soft morning light, her face looked calm and lovely. Her lips were still red from the kisses they had shared. Daniel brushed a piece of hair from her cheek and touched her face gently. That small touch felt more real than anything he had ever done before. "You are the most amazing person I have ever met," Daniel whispered. And this time, his words were true. He wasn't pretending anymore. He was speaking from his heart. Isabel smiled warmly. She believed him. She believed in him. And in that moment, Daniel realized something that scared him deeply. He was no longer in control. What had started as a plan for revenge had turned into something real. He had fallen in love. He was torn between his father's memory and the wonderful woman who had taught him how to feel again. A week later, the Orion Gallery was ready for its grand reopening. The smell of fresh paint filled the air, and excitement buzzed everywhere. Isabel walked through the beautiful new space with a heart full of pride and hope. Everything was perfect: shiny floors, bright lights, and paintings waiting to be hung. It was her mother's dream brought back to life. She thought about Daniel and how he had changed lately. He was happier now, warmer, and talked about the future with her. He laughed more, touched her hand gently, and dreamed about traveling together for art shows. It all felt so real, like a true beginning. Wanting to surprise him, Isabel decided to bring him lunch. Daniel had said he had a long, boring meeting with his accountants at his penthouse. She packed a little picnic and smiled, imagining how he would laugh when she showed up. Using the special code Daniel had given her, she entered his penthouse. The place was quiet and tidy. She put the food on the kitchen counter and looked around. Then she saw something. The door to Daniel's private study was open just a little. He had always told her not to go in there, but today she thought it would be fun to hide inside and surprise him when he came back. Smiling to herself, she pushed the door open. The room looked simple, with a big steel desk and clean walls. But when she looked closer, her smile faded. On the wall behind the desk was something strange. A collage of pictures. Old photos of her father, newspaper articles about Sterling Enterprises, and in the center a photo of her and her father at a charity event, the same night she had first met Daniel. Her heart started to pound. There were also pictures of another man, one who looked very much like Daniel, but younger and sad. There were obituaries with the same written again and again in red ink: Julian Reed. She looked down and saw a leather journal open on the desk. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. The writing was Daniel's, but it looked angry, full of hate. She began to read. October 12th, met the daughter today. She's soft, too kind. This will be easy. November 3rd, the gallery is perfect. She trusts me completely. November 28th, she kissed me. That's good. Her pain is my power. I'll make her love me. Then I'll destroy everything. The pages slipped from her hands and fell to the floor. Her heart felt frozen. Everything. The laughter, the touches, the night they spent together. It had all been a lie. Then she heard his voice. Isabel. She turned around. Daniel stood in the doorway, his coat still on. When he saw her pale face and the open journal, his eyes filled with horror. Julian Reed, Isabel whispered, her voice shaking. He was your father. Daniel flinched. Isabel, please let me explain. Explain what? She cried. That you used me, that you used my mother's dream to hurt me? Everything you said, everything you did, was it all a plan? At first, yes, Daniel said softly, but it changed. I changed. What I feel for you now is real." "Don't," she screamed. "Don't say that. You don't get to say that." Tears ran down her cheeks. "My father's mistakes are his own, but you looked at me, you held me, and you lied to me. You're a monster." She pushed past him, grabbing her bag. Daniel reached for her, but she backed away. "Isabel, please," he begged. But she shook her head. "The gallery, everything, it's over," she said through tears. "It's all built on lies. I want you out of my life forever." Her voice became quiet, but her words cut deep. "You wanted to break a sterling. Well, you did. I hope you're proud." She opened the door and left. The sound of it slamming echoed through the silent apartment. Daniel stood still. Around him were all the things he had wanted, proof of his revenge. He had destroyed her father. He had won. But the victory felt hollow. He looked at the picnic basket she had brought for him, sitting quietly on the counter. The sight broke him. He let out a sound of pain and swept everything off the desk, glass and papers crashing to the floor. But nothing could stop the silence she left behind. He had gotten everything he wanted and lost everything that mattered. Days later, the world learned about the fall of Sterling Enterprises. Hidden secrets and stolen money were revealed. News headlines said, "Sterling Empire collapses in scandal." Daniel watched it all from his tall window. On TV, her father, Cassius Sterling, was being led away by guards. Daniel's phone buzzed with messages from people congratulating him for his victory. But Daniel didn't feel like a winner. He felt empty. He poured himself a drink, but it tasted like nothing. He had spent 10 years dreaming about this day, to make his father proud, to get revenge. But instead, he could only hear Isabel's voice. "You are a monster." He walked around the big empty apartment. He had destroyed his enemies, but he had also destroyed the one person who made him feel alive. He had spent so long trying to fix the past that he had ruined his future. Across the city, Isabel sat alone in her quiet gallery. The closed sign hung on the door. The art that once filled her with joy now felt cold. The reopening was canceled. Her father's crimes were true, and Daniel's revenge had made them public. Two men had fought their old battle, and she had been caught in the middle. She looked at a photo of her mother smiling in the same gallery many years ago. This place was supposed to be full of love and dreams. Now it was full of sadness. She thought of Daniel, his laugh, his gentle hands, the way he used to look at her. She had believed in all of it, but it was all a lie. She felt broken, not just because her family had fallen, but because her heart had too. She knew she could never trust anyone that easily again. As she sat in the quiet room, the door suddenly chimed. Someone had come in. Isabel looked up quickly, her heart jumping with hope. But it wasn't Daniel. It was just an old couple looking through the glass door of her art gallery. They smiled kindly, saw the closed sign, and walked away. Her heart felt heavy again. She had hoped, just for a moment, that Daniel had come back. Even after everything he had done, a small part of her heart still wished to see him again. Far away, Daniel was standing in front of a big window in his tall office building. He looked down at the city lights. He didn't see a place he owned or ruled. He saw the city where Isabel lived. Isabel, the woman he had hurt. He saw his own reflection in the glass, a rich, powerful man, but also a very lonely one. He had won everything he thought he wanted. He had gotten his revenge, but now that he had it, it felt empty. His heart was like an echoing cave, filled only with the memory of Isabel's smile, her laughter, and the tears he caused. He had spent years building his anger into a weapon, but when Isabel came into his life, she showed him something different. That his revenge was not a victory at all. It was just sadness. He had destroyed her family, but he had also destroyed himself. And now, with deep pain, he knew he would give away all his money, all his fame, all his success, just to see her smile at him once more without pain in her eyes. That was the true cost of revenge. He had lost everything that really mattered. The Orion Gallery, once quiet and closed, now had a new sign on its door. It said, "Reopening soon." Isabel stood inside the gallery. Her heart was full of mixed feelings, sadness, confusion, and something she couldn't name. Just a week ago, her life had fallen apart. Her father was under house arrest. His business had been destroyed. The gallery, her dream, and her heartbreak had felt like a prison. Then one day, lawyers came to visit her, but they weren't her father's lawyers. They were Daniel's. They gave her some papers. These papers said that the gallery was now hers, completely and forever. No one could take it away. Daniel had given it to her as a gift. There was more. Daniel had also made sure that Isabel was safe from her father's crimes. He had used his money and power to protect her. There was no note, no letter, no please forgive me. Only this, a gift of freedom and safety. Isabel didn't know what to feel. Her anger began to fade. He had hurt her deeply, but now he was trying to make it right. One afternoon, the little bell above the gallery door rang. It was a sound she hadn't heard in weeks. She turned around, and there he was, Daniel. He looked so different. His face was tired, his clothes were messy, his eyes looked like he hadn't slept in many nights. "I didn't know if you would let me in," he said quietly. Isabel could have told him to leave. She probably should have, but something about him stopped her. He wasn't proud or angry anymore. He looked real. He looked sorry. "Why, Daniel?" she asked softly. "You won. Why do all this now?" Daniel took a small step closer. His voice shook a little as he said, "Because I lost the only thing that ever mattered. You." He took a deep breath. "My father, Julian Reed, was a good man. Not perfect, but kind. Your father was his business partner, but he stole money and left my father to take the blame. My father couldn't handle the shame. It broke him. It killed him." Isabel's eyes filled with tears. For the first time, she saw the truth. Daniel wasn't just a cruel man. He was a boy who had lost his dad and carried that pain for years. "I thought revenge would make me feel better," Daniel said. "I thought hurting a Sterling would make me whole. I was wrong." He looked right into her eyes. "I used you, Isabel. I lied. I hurt you. And I'm so sorry. But what I felt for you became real. I fell in love with you. And when I hurt you, I hurt myself." Isabel's eyes filled with gentle tears, not angry ones this time, but tears of understanding. "The man I was," Daniel said quietly, "died with my father. The man I became with you, that's who I want to be now. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that everything I've done since you left was for you, to give you back your life." He stood close, but not too close. The air between them felt full of their past, the lies, the pain, and the love that never truly went away. Isabel looked at him carefully. She saw both sides of him, the man who had hurt her and the man who had loved her. Could love heal what was broken? Could it be like the Japanese art called kintsugi, where broken pottery is fixed with gold, making it even more beautiful? She slowly reached out and touched his hand. A spark ran through both of them, the same spark she had felt long ago. "The man you became with me," she said softly. "I love that man too." Daniel's eyes widened in hope. "I can't forget what happened," Isabel said, her voice trembling. "It's a part of our story now, but you've changed, and so have I. You showed me my strength. You showed me that my dreams are worth fighting for." She took a small step closer until she was standing right in front of him. "I choose to believe in the man who gave everything back." A single tear fell down Daniel's face. Isabel gently wiped it away with her thumb. "We start from here," she whispered. "No more lies, no more past, just us." Then Daniel kissed her. It was not like their first kiss, which had been full of secrets and plans. This one was soft, slow, and full of forgiveness. It was a promise of a new beginning. Their tears mixed with their kiss, tasting like sadness, but also like hope. He held her close as if she was the most precious thing in the world. And she was. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling through their tears. The gallery no longer felt empty. It felt alive, like a blank canvas ready for a new painting. "I love you, Isabel Sterling," Daniel said, his voice full of truth. Isabel smiled brightly, a real smile that reached her eyes for the first time in weeks. "I know," she said softly, "and I love you, Daniel. Whoever you are now, that's what matters." Outside, the city kept moving. People rushed by, stories changed, headlines faded. But inside the Orion Gallery, surrounded by their memories and their future, something new had begun. It was not a story of revenge anymore. It was a story of redemption, of forgiveness, and of love stronger than pain. And like gold filling broken cracks, their love shone brighter than ever before.